Right, moving on then. If there's one industry that has seen a great deal of churn in the post-AI boom that has besieged Indian tech, it's the SaaS ecosystem. The software as a services industry has had to reimagine the work that it does on multiple fronts. After all, AI is now poised to take over customer relationship management and change the way SaaS tools are built. So it isn't too surprising that pricing models have seen some change too. Recently on the show, Freshworks CEO Dennis Woodside had said that the SaaS major had begun charging its customers per AI session, with 7,000 out of Freshworks' 65,000 customers now paying for AI services. Now, a recent report on the SaaS talent ecosystem by Careernet, capturing key trends from the first half of FY26, has revealed that the churn notwithstanding, Chennai and Bengaluru continue to remain the largest reservoirs of SaaS talent. And while overall SaaS hiring eased out in Q2 of FY26, the demand for key roles within SaaS continues to be steady. Which roles are these? Well, Careernet's report points to software engineering roles as continuing to account for 38% of hiring across the ecosystem itself, followed by sales and business development. To break down some of these insights, I'm now joined by Anshuman Das, co-founder and CEO at Careernet. Anshuman, firstly, thanks so much for joining us on the Bulletin. My first question to you. It does seem like a foregone conclusion that SaaS will always remain a stronghold, talent availability-wise, of Chennai and Bengaluru. In fact, Chennai alone accounts for 34% of India's SaaS talent, according to your report. Bengaluru, on its part, accounts for 21%. What's got both these cities leading the rest when it comes to SaaS talent itself?
Thank you, Jude. Thank you for having me on the show. So, Chennai, obviously, because of the fact that the two most early companies in India, Zoho and Freshworks, were the first two really the true SaaS companies which fostered a very strong product culture in that. And I think they developed a very strong base of product managers, engineers, and go-to-market professionals. And over a period of time, if you notice, this whole network in Chennai has evolved on to spawn out many more other companies. And that's how the base bed in Chennai got built. And it is not a surprise that 34% of India's SaaS talent comes from Chennai. Bangalore obviously is a very major tech hub to that degree. And given the fact that there had been so many other startups and GCCs and global companies which were there, so Bangalore was a very natural choice for very high-end talent or for great tech talent in the SaaS ecosystem. And that's why you see a reasonably high degree of propensity for companies to either start in Chennai or to expand in Bangalore. And that's why 55% of our SaaS talent ecosystem resides in Chennai and Bangalore.
Right, and speaking of talent itself, let's talk about that big finding from your report for H1 of FY26. Sure, hiring might have eased off thanks to smaller SaaS firms cutting down, but the mid-sized SaaS segment is still hiring, even if marginally so. How significant is this finding really?
Oh, this is quite a significant finding to that degree. And the mid-sized firms, so if you actually see our overall report, you will see that there are 25,000 SaaS firms in India and only 1,000 of them are funded. And what we have studied is the 100 companies. And typically, if you take these 100 companies, they are the ones which are essentially building on to the most of the SaaS ecosystem. And when you look at this 100 companies, this whole mid-bulge bracket, which is mostly around the 500 to 1,000 employees bulge bracket, is the one where we have seen growth. It clearly points out to the fact that we will very soon see many more larger SaaS companies coming out of India. So while the smaller ones may have slowed down, but the mid-sized ones are essentially finding a lot of growth, and they are essentially expanding on go-to-market and engineering and adopting AI, and which essentially points out to the fact that there will be at least good number of unicorns and good number of large SaaS companies coming out in FY27-28 very soon.
Anshuman, I want to talk to you a little bit about the kind of roles that are being hired for. It seems like software engineering and development continues to remain a HR favorite. Explain this to us for a bit. The discourse that has been doing the rounds is that AI would reduce the need for base-level developers since AI agents have already begun writing boilerplate code. And yet your findings say SaaS firms continue to hire in engineering and development. What's that all about?
See, SaaS has never been a very big, I would say, volume-wise employment generator. It has been a very value-wise and a very high-end job generated to that degree. So SaaS as a overall, if you see these 100 top companies roughly have roughly about 75,000 folks, which is probably even what one-fifth or one-sixth of what a Infosys or Wipro TCS will have. So, but from a revenue point of view, their contribution is almost like about $15 billion plus kind of a thing. So SaaS will continue to remain a niche and will continue to remain a area which will generate a lot of top dollars, will generate a lot of market value, will attract a lot of funding. But it is not a area which is a volume game. It is a very value game, and you will find far more deeper AI capabilities which will get built. So the SaaS per se will attract a lot of top tier talent to that degree. And it will have a lot of downstream effect of a lot of services getting built over a period of time, which will be more per se, more volume driven jobs to that degree. But SaaS per se will be very value driven to that larger degree.
Right, and speaking of talent itself, let's talk about that big finding from your report for H1 of FY26. Sure, hiring might have eased off thanks to smaller SaaS firms cutting down, but the mid-sized SaaS segment is still hiring, even if marginally so. How significant is this finding really?
So, AI is definitely somewhere helping to improve a lot of productivity, helping to write code. But I think there is a lot more which now, because of AI, a SaaS company can expand horizontally, as in sideways, as well as vertically and downwards both ways. So the overall need for first these SaaS companies to do much more is increasing. The second, I think the speed at which they can go and acquire many more markets and more customers is very high. So AI to a larger degree is a big tool for them to do more with same. And that's where you see that the overall hiring headcount is not changing big, but there is a whole up leveling which is happening. So which means that there is a lot of more engineering product and more AI native talent which is getting hired. So per se the headcount may not increase, but you may see some of these companies actually doing far more than what they were doing earlier because of AI capability getting inbuilt.
Anshuman, what's your outlook on funding in the SaaS ecosystem? Your report points to the fact that a vast majority of the SaaS ecosystem, that's 86%, remains unfunded. How is this likely to change in the medium term?
So two, three things it highlights. One is obviously a very large chunk of SaaS companies in India still do not have a very global outlook. So this is essentially still there is a lot of story which is getting inbuilt. It is still in a very early stage. And basically it means that the fact that a lot of these companies are very bootstrapped at the right point in time when the revenue and the economics becomes bigger and they have more global visibility, you will see funding happening. And that means that the future scope for a lot of these companies getting funded will remain there. Second, I think SaaS by model by itself doesn't really consume great amount of capital to larger degree till the time you do not have a very strong go-to market to that degree. So the 14% company which got funded, and even in that, if you see, it's only 25% company which have attracted the most of the capital. So I would say SaaS is still in its early stage to that degree, and it will essentially go a lot more higher on its capability by AI coming in. And that's the time you will see that the funding outlook in this sector will also increase over a period of time. Obviously, the funding outlook in 2021-22 was very high. It has been not that high in 24-25 like any other sectors. But I would say there is a good supply of companies which will essentially be ready, which will be actually consuming good amount of funding in 26-27 as we move forward.
Chennai, accounting for over a third of India's SaaS talent, only has about 11% of India's SaaS offices. So how is this share of real estate investments likely to change going forward?
So 34%, 11% of SaaS offices doesn't mean 11% of the real estate by square feet. It is essentially means if you see our report, we have mapped 100 companies of which typically have got 200 offices in India between these 200 engineering and centers in India, and of which 11% are in Chennai, which means that 22 offices are there in Chennai. And whereas when you look at Bangalore, it has got 27%, which means that 54% is there, as in 54 offices are there in Bangalore. So while Bangalore will have a lower number of SaaS talent and Chennai will have a higher number of SaaS talent, but the number of companies which will have larger centers is Chennai is going to be far more higher. And you will see a integration happening where companies may not have 7, 8 offices, may have maybe 1 or 2 offices where they may say, okay, I pick one center like a Hyderabad or a Chennai, which is my volume center, and my high-end AI and very deep native tech talent, I will likely go and build in Bangalore. So that is how I see the new ecosystem evolving between Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore. That is how I see the most three prominent centers are going to come out. And obviously, up north, Delhi will definitely attract a good volume. So that is where I see the four places where you will see a lot of SaaS talent happening. And Pune will probably be mostly the fifth one to that degree.
Well, on that note, great speaking to you, Anshuman. Thanks so much for joining us and breaking down those insights.